In 1598, a German traveler arrived at the court of Elizabeth I and wrote down one very strange detail in his diary. The Queen of England had completely black teeth, but here's the wild part. In London at that time, this was a sign of wealth and high status. I'm Jasper Diggs, and today we're digging up the story of a substance that turned a rotten mouth into a symbol of prestige and became the first product in history that people got hooked on faster than they could understand the consequences. Settle in, pour yourself some tea, and maybe skip the sugar. You'll see why in a moment. So, what was the ultimate sign of wealth in 16th century England? Black, rotting teeth. Queen Elizabeth I adored sugar so much that by the end of her life, she could barely speak. Her teeth had turned into black stumps. The Queen was literally obsessed with sweets. She didn't just eat desserts, she sprinkled sugar on meat, on vegetables, even on fruit. Her favorites? Marzipan and candied violets. When the decay became unbearable and she was terrified of dentists, do you know how they finally convinced her? According to one popular story, the Bishop of London, John Aylmer, pulled out his own last healthy tooth right in front of her, just to prove, see, Your Majesty, it's tolerable. Now that's what I call career advancement. In the gardens of the nobility stood special pavilions called banqueting houses. Their only purpose? Eating sugar desserts. Back then, sugar wasn't sold in bags. It was pressed into enormous cones hard as stone called sugar loaves. To break off a piece, you needed special pliers called sugar nips. It was a ritual. At royal banquets, entire castles and life-size sculptures were built out of sugar and then smashed and eaten. In 1519, Cardinal Wolsey threw a lavish banquet at Hampton Court. Among the treats were exquisite sugar sculptures, chess pieces, castles, animals, and even a model of St. Paul's Cathedral. Guests said the craftsmanship was so impressive you wanted to admire them rather than eat them. In the wills of aristocrats, sugar loaves were listed as inheritance, right alongside silver. Before the 16th century, sugar in Europe was more expensive than gold. A single pound of sugar cost as much as a full-grown cow. Picture this. You set a small bowl of white powder on the table, and it's literally worth an entire herd of cattle. So people didn't just enjoy sugar, they flaunted it. Black rotten teeth became a status brand. But then, something happened that rewrote the DNA of our civilization. In 1493, on his second voyage, Christopher Columbus carried more than dreams of gold. In the holds of his ships were sugarcane cuttings. Columbus wasn't carrying weapons of mass destruction. He was carrying a sprout, and that sprout would kill more people than all the wars of his century combined. The Caribbean climate turned out to be the perfect incubator for sugarcane. Paradise for the plant, and absolute hell for the people who harvested it. At first, the Spanish tried using the native Taino people. But here's a horrifying statistic. 50 years after Columbus arrived, almost nothing remained of the million-strong Taino nation. Disease, starvation, and endless labor under the burning sun. It wiped them out. And so the Europeans made the most cynical move in history. They looked across the ocean, to Africa. This is how the Great Triangle was born. A business model built on blood and molasses. Ships left London and Liverpool packed with weapons and cheap textiles. In Africa, that cargo was traded for human beings. Months in chains across the ocean. Up to 15% died from disease, hunger, and despair. On the worst voyages, 1 in 3. And on the Caribbean shore, the cane was waiting. Every spoonful of sugar in an English gentleman's cup was paid for by this bloody arithmetic. Sugar became the world's first mass consumption product, for which slavery was officially scaled up to industrial proportions. You know why they called sugar white gold? During boiling, a thick black sludge drained out of the cane. Molasses. From molasses, they distilled rum. Rum was traded for new slaves. The circle closed. By 1700, everything changed. Production volumes grew so massive that the price of sugar collapsed by 20 times. What used to be Elizabeth I's exclusive privilege, now any shopkeeper could afford, and soon, so could his maid. Let's jump to 1750. The ports of London and Liverpool are packed with ships. But look closely at those barrels being unloaded. Each one contains the equivalent of a human life. The sugar industry ran on a system where human life was a consumable resource. Sugarcane is the most labor-intensive crop in the world, working in 100-degree heat, surrounded by snakes, with endless burns from boiling syrup. This was the world's first truly global and truly brutal business. Let's look at an average day for a plantation worker. Let's call him Kwasi. 4 in the morning. Work begins. Sugarcane has to be cut by hand with a machete. The stalks are hard as wood. The leaves are sharp as razors. By noon, Kwasi's hands are one bloody blister. But the real horror begins at the pressing stage. If a worker's hand got caught in the copper rollers, the overseer had to chop it off instantly with a hatchet that always lay ready beside the press. It was the only way to save the man's life. Before the rollers pulled in the rest of his body, the juice was boiled in huge open cauldrons. The steam was so thick that workers fainted from heat stroke. Sometimes they fell into the boiling vats. Average life expectancy on a sugar plantation: 7 years. Sugar literally ate people faster than decay ate teeth. So, I can only hope that our Kwasi lived a long and happy life. And now, my favorite twist in this story. Do you know where sugar was first sold in Europe? In pharmacies. Until the 17th century, it sat on the shelves right next to opium and mercury. It was the cure for everything. Cough, sugar, plague, sugar with herbs, male weakness or a broken heart. A spoonful of sugar for this gentleman. Without sugar, medicine was considered helpless. In 1622, a physician named Tobias Venner wrote that sugar cleanses the blood and cheers the spirit. A shame he didn't add that from all this cheer, his patient's kidneys were failing. In 1674, another English doctor, Thomas Willis, noticed a strange illness in his patients. They were losing weight, tortured by thirst, slowly fading away. Willis, a meticulous man, decided to check their urine. By taste, it was sweet, and so the first ever description of diabetes was born. Willis called it diabetes mellitus, literally honey flow. The cure for all diseases turned out to be the greatest disease of all. But even after this discovery, sugar didn't surrender. In 1715, Dr. Frederick Slair wrote an entire book defending sugar. He argued with critics and insisted you could even clean babies' teeth with it. Spoiler, you can't. So next time someone prescribes you a natural remedy for everything, remember the pharmacists of the 17th century. They also sincerely believed they had found a miracle cure. What they found was an epidemic that's still going today. Sugar made bitter coffee and tea affordable for the masses, and those drinks fueled the Age of Enlightenment. Sugar gave people energy, but it took away their peace. And us? We eat more sugar in a week than kings could afford in a lifetime. The sweetest lie in history is that this story is over. Here's a small thought to take with you. The next time you reach for something sweet, ask yourself one simple question. Did this grow on a tree, or was it built in a factory? An apple, a handful of berries, a ripe pear. Nature has been making sweetness for millions of years. Factories, for about 200. Trust the older recipe. I'm Jasper Diggs. Subscribe. The world is full of forgotten treasures, and I know where to dig.